So give it up for Bruce, everybody, for being nice. Give it up to Kenny bringing the food, everybody else who brought some food. And of course, the lovely people here at Journeys for Conscious Living. We were here about a month ago for the tour that we're doing. We're doing a national tour called the Decentralize Your Life Tour. Traveling the country, spreading some good message and good ideas. And I'm going to talk to you guys briefly about that. I think I have about 10 or 15 minutes, and this talk I usually give is about an hour and a half, so you're going to get the super condensed speed read version. And if you're interested further, then please come talk to me. You can check out the website and all the material there and all the info. But before I get started, I want to invite everybody in this room who can hear my voice to participate with me. We've had so much good music and so much awesome energy and love happening in this room. If you could just take a deep breath with me, and when we release this breath, let's let out just the best, deepest howl that you can release, okay? Just trust me on this. All right, ready? Deep breath and then a howl. I usually feel better after that, so it's a good way to connect. I've been doing that for my talks more and more, traveling around the country, talking about these ideas that I'm going to discuss with you lovely people tonight. As Bruce said, I'm from Houston, Texas. I've been there my whole life. I'm here with my beautiful partner, Miriam, and this is sort of a break on our national tour, but I came here to speak at that conference Nexus that a few people have talked about tonight in Aspen the last couple days, talking about decentralized solutions for the many problems that we're facing in our world, and that's really where my work has been focusing increasingly. So today, in this moment, as of September, whatever today's date is, 2017, I am a freelance investigative journalist. I write for several different websites. I'm an author. I've written 3 books that are about these ideas. They're all available for free to download and all that good stuff. I'm an activist. I live in a community space pretty similar to the Liberty Lodge, the Freethinker House. Me and 2 other guys, we've got a big community garden there. We do similar events like this, benefit shows every month, we do documentary screenings. Lots of good things, trying to give people tools for the many issues that we face. We've always tried to focus on whatever the problem may be, how can we address it locally, what tools, what ideas, what solutions can we give our brothers and sisters. And as I sit here among all of my relatives, I'm thankful to see that this is what we can find on the tour, that there's so many people around the world, around the country already working on their own solutions. And I think more and more of us are realizing that the solutions are not to be found within these systems that we've been shown throughout our lives, that really the solutions come within our own hearts and mind, as well as whatever new ideas that we create, because if we're actually going to see change, it's going to come from outside the realm that they give us with something that we create. So that's who I am today, in this moment, in this time, and why I'm here, and how I've got to the point of doing these national tours and all this beautiful stuff. I mean, it's really just a blessing, constantly humbled. Like, just the fact that somebody wanted to fly me from my home, pay me for it, put me up in a swanky-ass hotel for a few days and get to hang around with other cool people. I'm just like, wow, this is my life. I'm constantly humbled. Like, get to hang out with so many amazing people. But 12 years ago, it was a much different story, and I want to share this with you briefly because this is what brought me to be here in this moment, as I'm sure you beautiful people understand, everything that happens to us in our lives, it's playing a role in where we're going to be, down the line. So I'm 32 years old now, and I've been on this journey, my awakening, as many of us put it, I think started in late 2009, early 2010, and that led me to the creation of the Houston Freethinkers, activism, journalism, and to doing this full time. That's how I pay my bills, writing articles, researching, spreading ideas. But in 2005, I was addicted to crystal meth. And in November 2005, I was arrested for possession of crystal meth, and I was sentenced to 2 years I was given 2-year felony probation, and then also a concurrent 11-month sentence in a Texas state prison. And that was really, the true beginning of my awakening, I would say, because it was that experience, that sort of like gut check of like, what the hell am I doing? I got arrested and got locked up the week before I turned 21. And, preceding that, I'd been on a journey of 2 or 3 years from the end of my high school days into, just partying after that, getting into, abusing tools and gifts like MDMA and LSD and mushrooms and other things. And really, I say abusing because I definitely didn't have the respect that I believe is necessary for those gifts and the tools, the experiences they offer to us. And so I abused alcohol. I was the dude at every party who was doing like 18 beer bongs, like 20 shots, and by the end of the night, you saw me puking all over myself. And people were like, damn, that dude is, I don't know if he's having a good time. I don't know if I was either. And then it went from alcohol to ecstasy to Xanax and, waking up not knowing what I did or what kind of foolish thing came out of my mouth. And then eventually it led to crystal. And within 10 months of trying crystal, I lost my relationship, lost my apartment, lost my job, lost a lot of relationship with family, got kind of taken under the wing by some gentlemen who were at points in their lives where they've decided that selling drugs and being in and out of prison was really what they had settled on. They were okay with that being their life. They took me under their wing, kind of had a weird sort of father-son relationship, and I learned a lot about dealing drugs and dealing with people who are not in the best places in their lives, and ended up living in a crack house, meth house, and just spiraling worse and worse and worse until, excuse me, until somebody was killed right outside of the apartment that I was living in. And that was definitely one of the experiences that, along the line, I just continued to ask myself, like, what the hell am I doing? Why am I here? People would see me, people I was using with would say, like, man, you don't even seem like you're having a good time. Like, I don't know if I am, but I'm gonna stay awake for another couple days and try to figure it out. And things got, as you can imagine, when you're already sort of in a bad emotional place, which is what was really going on for me. Now looking back, 12 years later, I can very easily see that a lot of scars and deep trauma that I picked up in my very early years, you see, because I'd spent the earliest years of my life visiting my father in prison. The Broze men on my father's side of the family have at least 4 generations of drug abuse, alcohol abuse, prison. My great-grandfather hung himself in prison. And I didn't learn these things till I got locked up. When I got locked up, started asking myself these questions like, why the hell did I get here? Why did I make these choices? And I could see very obviously the trauma that had affected me as a child going to visit my father in prison and him making certain promises and then not fulfilling them, and how that affected me as a child, how that made it very difficult for me to trust anybody, and then also sort of put me in a mindset of, well, I guess that's just what adults do. They just say whatever the hell they want, and then they don't follow through, I'll be there this time, I'm gonna be there on this birthday, I'm gonna be there for this holiday, and these kind of things. So I spent a lot of my young life basically, having thoughts that most people would consider to be suicidal. And I did indeed try to kill myself a couple times when I was a teenager. And around 14, basically had an experience where he was supposed to be getting out of prison, and it was like a big deal for my family. And once again, before he could even come visit, he was already on his way back in. And so I remember being 14 and hearing this at my grandmother's this Christmas, and I go into the bathroom, and I'm just like crying my eyes out for a second. I remember looking in the mirror and just being like, fuck this. I'm never gonna let anybody hurt me again. And from that age of 14 until pretty much when I got locked up, I just put this shell around my heart, and I became very misanthropic. I thought there was power in my hatred of humanity, of the world, and just screw it, everything's fucked up, I don't care, Very apathetic and just angry, and became very, very destructive, and was very destructive in high school, and on and on and on until drugs came along. And all of a sudden I tried these things, wow, I feel something. I feel different than what I felt most of my life. And that just spiraled out until I went to prison. So in prison, I started to ask these questions. I started to write down my thoughts every single day. And one day, excuse me, I've been fighting a cold this week. One day in the Saturday paper in Houston, they have a religion section where they list various quotes from different traditions, the Bible, the Torah, the Quran. And they had a quote from the Dhammapada, which is sometimes known as the Buddhist Bible, which is a collection of verses from the Buddha. And I read some of them in the paper and was immediately just struck, wow, I need to know more of this. And so started to get my family and my grandparents to send me as much info on Buddhism and meditation as they could. And I started meditating, behind bars, which is a very difficult place to do such a thing when there's lots of ego and fear and judgment and racism. And it's real primitive, low-level thinking. You look like me, I'm gonna come hang out with you. You can't talk to those kind of people. Very, very different ecosystem. So I learned a lot in those times, and basically from that sentence, November 2005, till I was released the next year, I spent a lot of time getting closer to myself. I didn't get it the first time. I went back after 5 months, got sent back for another 3 months, and then a year later would go back again. And by the time it was all said and done, by October 2008, when I was released for the final time, I'd done 18 months behind bars of various institutions, Texas state prisons. But it was in those days that I really started to get to know myself on a deeper level and to see this very clear path that wow, I have not been dealing with these issues. I have not been dealing with these pains. And so at that time, if you'd come to me with all these important issues and things that I fight for now, I would have told you, well, man, that's so crazy. The wars are going on. They're spying on us. They're killing people on the streets. Wow. But I wouldn't have been able to do anything about it because I couldn't even, I was just I'm just trying to make it through the next day, and I'm just trying not to kill myself today. That's really how it was at that time. And so when I came to this realization, and then got out of prison, started researching the drug war that I'd just been a part of, started researching a lot of the world, created the Houston Freethinkers. After a couple years, I realized that it wasn't enough, that I created this activism group, but I'd sort of separated these two sides of myself, and I'm gonna start wrapping it up here. I had my spiritual side that I developed while I was locked up, and I had my friends that I would go to meetups like this, and we'd have meditations together. But I tried to talk to them about, say, police brutality or the Federal Reserve or whatever issue I cared about, and they would be like, man, don't talk about it, you're gonna create the bad things, don't discuss these things, and just try to shy me away from talking about it. Then I'd go to my activist friends and be like, man, have you guys ever thought about, maybe we're all one and just different things, and they're like, what are you talking about? So these two sides of myself are basically just like opposing each other. But for me, the spiritual and the physical battle have always been one of the same, and that's where that phrase, the conscious resistance, came to me. And please go check out the website if you want to know more about this. And that's also the title of my book series and all these things, and basically my work explores that. It recognizes that what the conscious resistance means, or what I'm now calling holistic activism or holistic anarchism, is that the struggle for a more free and ethical world is not only one in the sense of identifying the corporate and governmental structures that interfere and affect our lives and oppress us and kill us and murder us and do all sorts of horrible things. But it's also the awareness that the struggle is an eternal one within each of our own hearts and minds. Because at the end of the day, it sounds cliche, but we literally are the change. And not just, it's not enough to say that phrase though, and this is such a beautiful thing right here. It's just so powerful. But what really matters at the end of the day is what we do. That's what the holistic message is about. So if you march against Monsanto, if you march against the Federal Reserve, then look at what ways you're contributing to those problems. You can go march on the streets all you want, but until you're growing your own food, then you're not serving yourself. You can march against the Federal Reserve all the time, but until you stop using the Federal Reserve note and you invest in alternative currencies or just create your own, then you're still supporting the same systems. So holistic anarchism, the conscious resistance, asks us to look deeper into ourselves for the solutions and to know that, well, whatever we create from here is what we decide to do. We can sit back and we can watch the world go in this direction, and we can put blame in external directions. We can point our fingers everywhere we want. But at the end of the day, it starts within us. So that's my short, simple message. My name's Derrick Broze. You can find me anywhere and everywhere. Love you guys. Thank you.
Hey, Derrick. Let's do 3 questions.
Okay, it says I got 3 questions. But before I do the questions, Kenny stole it from me earlier, but it's not really stolen. It's because it's a beautiful phrase. It's meant to be said. But the way I always end my talks is positive affirmations were huge in me letting go of that negative side of myself. And I had to retrain my thought and go from every time I made a mistake saying, God, you're so stupid, God, you're so stupid, to telling myself, like, it's okay. You made a mistake. Like, people make mistakes. You don't have to be hard on yourself. Positive affirmations help me. This is one of the ways I like to end. It's also on all of our shirts. So if you feel inclined to repeat, please do. I am powerful.
I am powerful.
I am beautiful.
I am beautiful.
And I am free.
I am free.
I got time for a couple of questions if anybody has any. If not, thank you guys. Anything? Cool. Bruce?
Where do we want to get our news, Derrick?
Where do you want to get your news? Well, not want to get your news? Well, a couple of websites that I write for, that obviously the reason I write for them is because I trust them and I think they're good. I write for 3 websites in addition to my own. Mint Press News, MINT, Mint Press News, they're a great resource for information. TheAntimedia.org and activistpost.com. Those are all websites that I write for that talk about issues from the environmental to consciousness to, sort of conspiracies and everything in between. And I feel like you start there if you're looking for a new source of information, you'll be onto a better track than you would watching TV.
No one else got a question. I got a question.
All right, Bruce, keep going.
Where are 3 of the places you've been to cover stories that these people would find interesting, intriguing?
I think probably the reason a lot of people started following me in the last year is because I made 3 trips to Standing Rock, and I was tased there, on the front line the day that they burned the frontline camps. And, I was there as a journalist because that's my duty to help people find out what's going on, but I was also there on a spiritual quest as well. I'm part Seminole, and I've been learning more and more about my own, indigenous ancestry, and so that's a part of my spiritual journey. I was also in Ferguson, the Boston bombing, a lot of these bigger things, and I've reported on various trials, and I also try to cover local things in Houston too. So from the big to the small, there's a lot of issues that need light.
And last question, if no, can we hear about something going on in Houston every year or every couple times a year?
Okay, so you are all invited to come to Houston and stay at my house. I'm not joking.
Yeah.
Look it up, the Freethinker House. We're on the east end of downtown Houston. Like I said, the Houston Freethinkers is the activist community. The space that me and two other guys live in, where we do all of our events and stuff, is called the Freethinker House. We do a twice yearly music, arts, and awareness festival. It's called For the Community. We've been doing it for 5 years now. You can look at ftcfest.com. But we do it in the spring and the fall, and it's free. It's a huge free festival. We have 2 venues, 3 stages spread across, and it basically turns into a giant block party. 2 different days of all genres of music. We purposely do all genres to bring all kinds of people together. And in between the music, we have poets and we have people speaking. I'll give talks.